All right, in 2019, a French teacher, Peter Vlaming, was fired from the West Point High School in Virginia for refusing to cater to a trans-identifying student's preferred pronouns. But even after the teacher tried to compromise by using the student's name in an effort to avoid pronouns, the school was not satisfied and they fired him. Well, Peter turned around and sued the school with the help of our friends at the Alliance Defending Freedom. And Peter and his attorney, Alliance Defending Freedom Senior Counsel, Chris Schandevel, joins me now to share the new developments in this case involving Peter, a very, very important case. Peter and Chris, welcome to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Jody. Thanks for having us on.
Well, my pleasure. Peter, let me start with you. Just overall, give us the latest from the Virginia Supreme Court.
Well, now to follow one's conscience, one doesn't have to lose their job in Virginia. To put it even more plainly, to refuse to speak lies or refuse to speak against one's conscience is no longer punishable by being fired.
That's fantastic news. And, you know, we always like to highlight around here great victories, and I see this as one of those. Chris, if you would clarify for our audience just what this actually means in very practical terms across the board.
Sure. So this is a huge win for Peter, obviously. And it's also really a historic victory for free speech and for religious liberty for all Virginians across the Commonwealth. What the Supreme Court of Virginia held last Thursday is that no one can be forced or compelled to endorse the government's viewpoint on a controversial issue like gender identity. And what happened here in this case, the school board was trying to do just that by trying to compel him to use pronouns that express ideological messages about sex and gender and biology. The school was essentially trying to force Peter to express agreement with the school's position on gender identity. And when he politely declined and said, "I'm happy to avoid pronouns, I just can't affirmatively express that message," the school said, "Well, that's not good enough, you're fired." And the Supreme Court of Virginia last Thursday said, "No, that's not good enough. That violates the Virginia Constitution."
Wow, that's powerful. You know, when they fired him for using the student's name, I mean, that's just like really a statement of trying to force him to comply with a worldview and ideology that he disagrees with. Peter, how long have you known this student? Was this kind of a new acquaintance, or have you known this student for a while?
Not at all. Not at all. One of my favorite students. This was her third year in my class. I was the only French teacher in the middle school and high school, which were combined under the same roof. And she had been in my class for exploratory French first year, and this was second year French when all of this went down. And it was a student that I got along very well with, a student that I like very much. And also, though I didn't agree with her choices, that's not something, it wasn't a subject that I pronounced. I didn't say anything about my stance in the subject. I wanted to continue showing her showing her respect, keeping my conscience clear. And so I did, like you mentioned, I did use her new chosen name, but I avoided using feminine pronouns in her presence. But the school, the administration really wanted me to become a true believer and to formally and publicly start using masculine pronouns to refer to the student, even when the student wasn't present, or even when students weren't, and when no students were present between faculty members. They obliged me to show that I was totally on board, and I told them, no, I can't do that.
Yeah, and that's really the essence of this. They were trying to force you into their belief. Why was it important for you to take this stand?
Well, it seemed very clear to me from the get-go that this was totalitarian, that through taking control of speech, imposing speech. They were forcing, like you said yourself, they're forcing a belief system, and a belief system that I consider to be utterly false. The fact that we're created men and women is an integral part of what it means to be a Christian and to believe in God's revealed truth, and just what we see with our, with our eyes. So that's why it was important for me to take a stand. This was about being truthful and also about modeling truthfulness and integrity to my students. My students all knew that I was a Christian, and I knew that they were looking to see, well, what is Mr. Vlaming going to do? How is he going to approach this? Is he going to fold? Is he going to just go along to get along? Is he going to just so I don't make any waves, or is he going to take a stand? So my witness to my students was also a big part of my motivation.
Absolutely. Chris, what's next in this case? Is it done, or are there additional steps yet to come?
So because procedurally this case was dismissed right out of the gate, we never actually got our day in court in the trial court. The case does go back down to the trial court now, and this lawsuit is reinstated and allowed to proceed. And for all the non-lawyers out there, that may sound like a very procedural victory, but in reality, the victory here is much broader, because what the practical effect of the Supreme Court of Virginia's decision is that if everything that we say happened to Peter and the reasons the school used and cited for firing him really did happen, then his constitutional rights absolutely were violated. And we know from the evidence that we have, from the written documents that the school released, that they literally fired him not for something he said, not for something he did, but for something that he could not in good conscience say. And what the Supreme Court of Virginia has said is that violates the Constitution. And so moving forward in the trial court, we are very confident about the strength of the arguments that we're making.
Well, thank you so much, Peter Vlaming and Chris Schandevel, for your leadership in this. God bless you both, and Merry Christmas to you. Thank you for leading the charge here.